So moving ahead with the tuples. In the previous lecture, we have learnt about lists and the operations that can be performed on lists. And now we will be learning about tuples and operations that can be performed on tuples. So just to remind you, learning by doing, that whatever concepts we are learning, we should implement, we should code it in the Python interpreter so that we can find the results actually what is happening when we are coding it. So this is the best way to learn Python. Fine. So next we start with what is Python tuple. Python tuple are like a list. Fine. And because similar features are there in the tuple as well. So it is like a list. It can hold a sequence of items as in the list. So difference is that it is immutable. This is the biggest difference between tuple and the list. Immutable means that you cannot change the values that you have once stored in the tuple. Suppose we keep the name of the tuple as a, and you are storing 1 comma 2 comma 3 inside a tuple. So you cannot change, you cannot reassign the values, you cannot delete the element from here, right? You cannot add the element over here, right? So this is immutable, you cannot change it, you cannot modify it. Fine. So this is immutable, right? Then is tuples construct simple group of objects. We have already seen in the list as well. They work exactly like lists, except tuples can't be changed in place. They are immutable and are usually written as a series of items in parentheses, not square brackets. So we are putting the elements in the parentheses and we are not putting in the square brackets. Then, although they do not support many methods, tuples share most of the properties with lists. So most of the properties of lists and the tuples are common, but many methods that are supported by lists, they are not supported by tuples. So that's why it has been written, although they do not support as many methods as are supported by lists, still tuples share most of their properties with the lists. So tuples are ordered collection. Tuples are ordered collection of arbitrary objects. Ordered collection of arbitrary objects like strings and lists. The elements do have their order. Tuples are positionally ordered collection of objects. They maintain a left to right order. They maintain left to right order among their contents. So here you can see the example. This is left to right. So it means this is the first element, this is the second element, this is your first element, this is your second element, this is your third element. So this is how the order is there in the elements. So like it is also similar to lists. They in the list also the elements have the order. So they can embed any kind of object. So heterogeneous elements can be stored in the tuple, similar to the we can say lists. The difference between the two is that we cannot change the elements of a tuple once it is assigned, whereas we can change the elements of a list. So this is the major difference between tuple and list. That's why in the first line we have written it is immutable. So we cannot change the elements of a tuple once it is assigned. But in list, we can change the elements we have seen in the earlier lecture. So simply putting, a tuple is a sequence of data. So here we can see we will be learning about how to create a tuple, how to access the elements of a tuple, how to slice a tuple. So most of the things we have already learned in list, how to delete a tuple, reassigning a tuple, what are the functions that are supported by the tuple, what are the methods that are supported on tuple, then operations that can be performed, how to iterate the elements of the tuple, and what do you mean by nested of tuples, that how you can nest the tuples inside the tuples, right? So how to create a Python tuple? To declare a Python tuple, you must type a list of elements separated by commas inside the parentheses. So here you can see the difference here between the list and tuple declaration creation is that here you are using the parentheses, but in the case of list you are using square brackets. So if you are using the square brackets, you can say it is a list. If you are using parentheses, it means this is a tuple. Otherwise you are writing the elements and you are putting the commas, and here you are enclosing the elements in the parentheses. So you should use a tuple when you don't want to change just an item in the future, because it is, what is this, it is immutable. So you cannot change the elements once it has been declared. Now we have two concepts over here: tuples packing and tuples unpacking. What do you mean by that? You can also create a Python tuple without parentheses, right? So here you can see b equal to element, first element, second element, third element, you are putting the commas over here, right? So it is without parenthesis, and this b is now tuple with three elements, 1, 2.0 and 3 as string. So this is known as tuple packing. When you are declaring the tuple without parenthesis, it is known as tuple packing. Now unpacking, right? So tuple unpacking is when you assign values from a tuple, right, to a sequence of variables in Python. So this is the tuple what you have declared, right? So the name of the tuple is percentage is. Now how many elements are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Now how many variables are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you are writing just the name of the tuple over here. So it means now a will be assigned with 99, b will be assigned with 95, c will be assigned with 90, d will be assigned with 89, e will be assigned with 93, and f will be assigned with 96. So if you try to display the value of c, what is assigned to c? It is assigned 90. So it will display 90. So it is unpacking. Packing means you are creating Python list, and unpacking means you are assigning the values of the tuple to the series of, or we can say sequence of variables in Python. And similar thing can be done with the list as well. Creating Python tuple, if we go ahead, creating a tuple with a single item. Now it's very important, just have a look on it. Until now we have seen how easy it is to declare a Python tuple, right? So we have seen how we can declare a Python tuple. So when you do so with just one element, if you are putting only one element into the tuple, what will happen? See, so this is the name of the tuple, and you are writing a equal to 1. So you are putting one element in the tuple. So what it will happen over there, it may create some problems. So when you now try to type the print the type of this a, right, it will display int, but we have declared tuple. Why it is coming int over here? This is when you are adding only one, you are creating the tuple with only one element, so this will happen. So wasn't the type method supposed to return class tuple? We were expecting this, right? We were expecting this, but it has not been done. So when you have to done this, what you have to do is we add a comma after this. So after first element, if there is only one element, you need to put a comma over here, and then you try to find the type of this variable. It will come out to be tuple. So this is the trick that you need to keep in your mind. So hence the problem is solved when you have only one element and you want to declare the tuple. And we saw in tuple packing we can skip the parenthesis. So when you are writing over here, so you can see over here a equal to, again one comma, comma has to be written over here. So if you will be writing comma, so then it will declare it as a tuple, otherwise it will be int. Also, like a list, Python tuple may contain items of different types. So we can see the example over here, in which you can see it is integer, it is floating point number, and it is that string. So you have all the three things over here. So it means all the three things have come over here. So next also we have something more to creating Python tuple. Creating a tuple is as simple as putting different comma separated values. We have already seen. Optionally, we can put these comma separated values between parentheses also. So for example, we can see in the first case, you can see over here on the screen that we have string physics, string chemistry, and then we have the integers 1997 and 2000. So we have put into the parentheses. Next we have in which only the integers are there, 1 2 3 4 5, and in the last you can see over here that we are not putting the parentheses, but we are writing a b c d, right? So in the form of strings, a is a string, b is a string, c is a string, d is a string, and the tuple will be created. So how can you create an empty tuple? So empty tuple is written as two parentheses containing nothing. So you can see over here that this is the empty tuple. Next, assigning literals to list. First is we are defining tuple of strings in which only strings are there. You can see from the first example that all the strings have been assigned to it by putting in single quotes. Then the tuple of integers are there, in which we have all the integers over here. Then we are creating the empty tuple. We have created the empty tuple. Then tuple of variables. So we have seen everything for the list, but here the parenthesis has been used instead of square brackets. In the case of list, you are using the square brackets. In the case of tuple, you are using the parentheses. So you can declare the list of variables. So first variable, second variable, third variable, and you can use the trailing comma over here also. Then you can use the tuple with mixed data types, right? In which we have seen that we have the integer, we have the string, we have the floating point number. Then you have the nested tuple, in which you are having, you can see over here that this is your string, and these are your uh, list. You can see over here this is the list, right? And this is your again a tuple, fine. So in this way you are writing the uh, nested tuple. So here you can see that we have string, you have list, you have tuple. Then tuple may also contain functions, as we have already seen in the list. So say hi, comma say hi. Say hi is a function because it is not enclosed in the quotes. So when you try to display the first element of this tuple, new list 0 in square brackets with index 0, so it will tell you that this is a function. And then you want to execute that function, you are putting open close parenthesis, right? So it will execute. So here you have seen that you are writing it like this, right? So in this way you can do like this. Then we are moving towards Python tuples. We have already seen creating a tuple, accessing a tuple. Then we are moving towards the slicing a tuple. First, we are doing assessing the tuple. So assessing the tuple, in which first we look at indexing, right? So we can use the index operator written in square brackets, right? To access an element in a tuple where the index starts from 0, right? The index must be an integer, so we cannot use float or other types. We already have seen in the case of list as well. This will result in the type error if you are using the float in the index. So likewise, nested tuples are accessed by using nested indexing. You have seen multi-dimensional arrays. So this is the similar kind of thing we are using over here as the nesting indexing. Thus, to refer to an element in the tuple, we use tuple identifier. What is tuple identifier? This is tuple identifier. Animals is the tuple identifier followed by the index. So inside square brackets, so 0th element, so we are mentioning it in the square brackets. So indices are integers which start from 0. So you can see over here numbers 1, animals 6. So this is the index, this is the index, this is the index. It means 0th element, first element, 6th element. So when you are writing 0 as index, it means first element, right? And if you are writing 1, it means you are mentioning second element. And here if you have index 6, it is 7th element, right? So now nested index means, so you are using two indexing over here. This is outer index and this is your inner index. We have already seen in the list as well. So let's take one more example. Okay, so they have taken the name as n underscore tuple. We also take as n underscore tuple, in which you have one index as, okay, 0 comma 1 comma 2 comma 3, right? So this is first element, this is second element, but elements itself are the tuples. So this is um, your 0th element of the tuple, this is the first element of the tuple. But further if you say, again it is a tuple and it also consists two elements, 0th and first element, and further contains 0th and first element because they are again the tuples. Now what we are doing over here is n underscore tuple 0th element. So this is the 0th element that it is referring to, and 3 means that if this tuple further has 4 elements, right, then we will be referring 0, 1, 2, 3. So we can write over here n underscore tuple, right, and then 0th element, and then here as we have two elements, so either we are referring the 0th element or we are referring the first element over here. So similarly what we can do is n underscore tuple, right, first element and further 0th element, then first element and further we have first element. So in this way you can have the nested index. So if you want to assess the entire tuple, you just mention the name of that tuple, it will display all the elements onto the screen. Pass it to the print statement. So print animals. So you are printing the elements. So here we can see the example of tuple 1, tuple 2. So we have taken first tuple, second tuple, and now what we are doing is we are printing tuple 1 0. So it will display what it will display, physics. Then tuple 2 1 to 5. 1 to 5 means this index will be considered, the lower index will be considered, but the upper bound will not be considered. So it will go up to, so this will be starting from 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So it will be 2, 3 and sorry, it is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, this is 6. So it will print 2, 3, 4 and 5. This 5 it will not print, right? Then as we have seen the indexing over here, so we are moving towards the negative indexing. So negative indexing, first look at this, in which it is mentioned over here, right? In which we have taken the case of a string in which PROGRAMIZ. If you go for beginning positive indexing, it is zeroth element. This is first element. This is second element. Zeroth means this is first element. Index is 0. First element, second element, third element, fourth element, fifth element, sixth element, seventh element, eighth element, and ninth element. Right. So this is not there. Then if you talk about the negative indexing, so this is your from end, this is your first element, minus 1, this is your minus 2, this is your minus 3, this is your minus 4, this is minus 5, this is minus 6, this is minus 7, this is minus 8, and this is minus 9. Fine. So if you start from here, it will start from 0, go up to 8. If you start from minus 1 from the end, it will go up to minus 9. Right. So here the Python allows negative indexing for its sequences. The index of minus 1 refers to the last element. Right. So this minus 1 is referring to the last element. Minus 2, it is referring to the second last element. Right, and so on. So negative indexing for assessing the elements. So suppose this is the example they have taken in which you want to take the output t. So t is there as the last element. So here you will be having the index as minus 1 because this is your minus 1, this is your minus 2, this is your minus 3, this is your minus 4, this is your minus 5, and this is minus 6. And if you consider positive, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So similarly you can print p by taking the index as minus 6. So we have already seen creating a tuple, assessing a tuple, and now we are moving towards slicing a tuple. So how you are assessing the elements by slicing the tuple? Slicing means you are taking the part, you are taking the subset of it. So we can extract a subset of a tuple which will itself be a tuple using a slice. We have already seen in the list as well. This uses almost the same syntax as assessing a single element, but instead of specifying a single syntax index between the square brackets, we need to specify upper and the lower bound. And now note that our subset sublist will include the element at the lower bound but exclude the element at the upper bound that we have already learnt in the list as well. So if you take the example over here in which animals is the tuple, we are having the range from 1 to 3. So 1 will be considered but 3 will not be considered. So it will go from 1 to 2. So here we can see this is your zeroth element, this is your first element, this is your second element, this is your third element. So it will display dog and fish, right? So then if you go back minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4. So it is saying 1, 2, minus 1. So 1, 2, 1 will be considered, right? Minus 2 will not be considered. So it will minus 1, 1 and minus 2, right? So again, it will be dog and fish. So we can use positive and negative indices collectively as well. So if one of the bounds is one of the ends of the tuple, we can leave it out. So 2 colon, then there is nothing. So what it will display? So we are starting from 2, right? Then they will be, we are including it. So fish and bison. It will go till end. Then colon 2. So here 2 will not be considered. Starting with 0, right? So cat and dog 2 will not be considered over here. But we are starting from 0. In the above case, we are going up to end. A slice with neither bounds specified gives a copy. So when you are taking the copy of the whole tuple, you are putting the just slide. We can even include a third parameter, that is step. We have already seen in that also. So step means leaving how many elements. So now we are moving towards deleting a tuple. So we here there is a difference over here, that if you talk about deleting, right? So a Python tuple is immutable. This also means that you don't delete just a part of it. Here there is a difference between list and tuple. You must delete an entire tuple if you may want. But thus, if you try to do this operation, error will be given. When you try to delete an element, as you can see the example over here, delete percentage 4. So percentage is the name of the tuple, and you are trying to delete the element with index 4. So it is giving you the type error, tuple object does not support item deletion because it is immutable. If you try to slice and delete, right here it is mentioned del percentages 2 to 4. Again, the error will be there because tuple object does not support item deletion. So you are deleting the tuple, so you are just writing the keyword as del and then name of the tuple, and you are then you try to print the tuple colors, so it will say that you cannot because name colors is not defined. Then reassigning a tuple, so we can see over here that reassigning is not possible. So but there is a trick also. As we have already discussed, a Python tuple is immutable. So let's try changing a value and see what happens over here. But before that, let's take a new tuple with a list as an item in it, right? So here it is consisting of the name of the tuple is my underscore tuple, and we have the elements as 1, that is the integer, 2, that is the integer, 3, that is the integer, but then 0th, 1st, 2nd and 3rd index element is a list, right? So we have integers and list as elements in the my underscore tuple. Now let's try changing the list 4 comma 5. This is a list, right? This is the 4th element in it. Its index is 3, no doubt. So my underscore tuple 3 equal to 6. So what you are doing, say here last it has been mentioned over here, tuple object does not support item assignment. Why is it so? Because what it is trying to do is, so it is your 0th, this is 1st, this is 2nd, this is 3rd. So you are trying to replace this list with a new element 6. You are trying to reassign it. So you cannot do that because the tuples are immutable. Here you can see tuple object does not support item assignment. See, that failed. Now how about changing an element from the same list? So now this is a list, right? So this is mutable, this is immutable, right? So what you can do, right? You can this is mutable, sorry, right? So this is mutable and this is immutable. Python tuple is immutable, right? So what you are doing over here is uh, my underscore tuple, right? My underscore tuple, then this is 0 1 2 3. Now you are directly approaching the element 3, and within that you are approaching the element 0, and you are replacing this with 6. So this 6 will be replaced over here in place of 6. So you can see over here it is allowed, because we can see that list can be reassigned. Values in the list can be reassigned. Tuples are immutable, and mutable item that it holds may be reassigned. Then we are moving towards functions on tuples, right? So what are the functions, built-in functions? We have length, we have max, we have min, we have sum, any, all, sorted, and tuple. And these we have already seen in the list as well. So only in the place of tuple there was a list. So same examples I have taken over here. First we have seen length, the length of a tuple, how many elements are there, sum. So if the numbers are there, so we are doing the summation, addition of all the elements. Any, are any of these values true? All, are all of these values true? Maximum, it is returning the item from the tuple with the highest value. Minimum, it is returning the item from the tuple with the lowest value. You can compare tuple 1 and tuple 2 as well. So it is comparing the elements of both the tuples, similarity of both the tuples. So it returns 0 if it is matched, and 1 when it is not matching with tuple 1. So in this way, so it is shorter or longer. 1 if tuple 1 is longer, -1 when tuple 1 is shorter, 0 when both are equal. And what is this tuple? It converts a different data type into a tuple, right? So what we are doing over here is that if you are writing ABC, sequence is there, so it will convert into tuple. So you are writing the tuple over here, and you are providing some sequence, it is converting into tuple. So but if it is not a sequence, it will not convert. Like you have seen over here is tuple 2. So init object is not iterable, so iterable objects can be converted into tuple. So sorted and reversed we have already seen in the list as well, in which you can have a modified copy of the tuple using sorted and reversed. And when you are talking about in place, so this sorted and reversed will not work, right? So sorted numbers is the name of the tuple, and you are giving it to the print, it will display the sorted elements of the numbers. Then print tuple reversed number. Again we have seen over here that reversed will give you the generator, so you need to convert into tuple first, so it will give you the reverse of that tuple, but you have to explicitly convert into tuple, and the original tuple is unmodified. Then we look at the methods on the tuples. We can see count. So there are only two methods, count and index. Count is count how many times a value is appearing in the tuple. So numbers dot count 5. How many times this number 5 is coming in the elements of the tuple. We have already seen this, the same method in the list as well. Index, find the index of a tuple, right? So you are providing some element, it will provide you at which index is there. If there are more than at more places, the 3 is coming at more places in the tuple, so whichever is the first one it will display. If the value is not in the tuple, we will get the value array. So then we are moving on the operations on the tuples. So we have four type of operations: membership, concatenation, logical, and identity. So membership operator, we want to check whether this element is the part of that number tuple or not. So we have considered this my underscore number equal to 67, and we will try whether this 67 is present in this tuple numbers or not. So we are writing here, if my number is basically any variable we have declared over here, right? My number in, it is a membership operator, and from where you want to search it, from this tuple, right? So if my number in the tuple, so if it is there, it will display, otherwise not. So my underscore number 90, so not in is another membership operator. Then logical, so we can use all the logical operators on the tuples, right? So you can see over here, so tuple 1 and tuple 2, and we have mentioned the logical operator here also. We have one, so it is mentioning false, and it is also mentioning false because these are the numbers and these are the character strings. As is obvious that ints 1 and are not equal to the strings 1 and 2, likewise it returns false. Identity, remember, is and is not operators we discussed about uh, on Python operators. So let's try that on tuples. So a equal to 1 2, so 1 2 is a. So you are trying to find that whether 1 2 is a or not, right? So this is identity, so false. That didn't make sense, did it? So what really happened? Well, in Python, two tuples or lists do not have the same identity. In other words, they are two different tuples or lists. As a result, it returns false. Concatenation, we all know that we have plus over here, in which we are appending one after another, and then we have multiply sort of that, in which we are we are appending it in three times. We have already seen it in the list as well, but here we are using open close parenthesis, and minus cannot be used over here because this is not supported. So then we are doing the iterating on a tuple, that we all know about that. How can we assess the elements? So we can see the example over here. We have already seen the example in the list as well. So we are using the loop over here for I in. So this is the tuple. So it will print the values over here. Then we have the nested tuples. We have already seen, but we are doing it again. A tuple may have the Python tuple. So tuple inside the tuple. So you can see the example over here that this is the nested tuple, right? And here also we can see now, if you try to find out the type of the zeroth element, so this will let you know that this is a tuple. A tuple may also contain list. So this is list we have put into it, and you try to find the type of this zeroth element, it will display it is a list. So comprehension, so we have already seen in the case of list as well. So you can display like this. So you can generate the elements over here by 2 multiplied by I for I in range of 1 to 11. So what it does is it is creating the elements of the tuple over here. So but here you are using the parenthesis because it is a tuple, and what it is doing is it is doing the looping over here from 1 to 10, right? Because 11 will not be considered over here. So it is finding the even numbers over here and putting into this, right? So it is starting first 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, and then multiplying by 2 with each element. So that's why the result is coming. So you can also filter out the elements by putting the conditions over here, as here they have mentioned about I percentage 3. If the remainder is 0, then it will consider that element to be put into the list. So these are some of the list I have used for finding the content for my presentation. So I give due credits to these websites. So thank you very much, and this is learning by doing.